Good morning, Year 3. Welcome to another science review lesson. This is lesson 4. We're looking at rocks and fossils. If you haven't done so already, you need to go and do the slideshow, which is on the website. And there you will learn all about different types of rocks and how fossils are made. So don't watch the rest of this video until you've done that. Okay, so I'm assuming now that if you are still watching, you have watched the slideshow, you've learned all about the 3 types of rock, which is sedimentary, igneous and metamorphic rock. You've also learned all about how fossils are created over millions and millions of years. So this activity that we're going to do now is we're going to make our own fossils. So it should be pretty fun. There are some things that you need to be really aware of. One is we're going to be using something called plaster of Paris, which is this powder. And this is the powder that if you break your bones, if you break an arm and you go to hospital, they soak a bandage in this powder, and they put water in it and they wrap your arm in it, and it goes really hard. So you know when you have a cast on, that's made of this powder. So you don't usually use this, but you have to be careful because some people are quite not allergic, but it can irritate your skin. So you need to be using some gloves with this and some kind of eye protection. I've got these really fancy glasses that I'm going to wear. If you don't have those, well, you should be doing this with a parent anyway because it gets a bit messy. So hopefully somebody's got some glasses knocking around the place. And these gloves, I picked these up really cheap. They're for, I think they're for when you're at a petrol station to stop oil getting on your hands. I think you can just take them for free actually, but don't tell anyone I told you that. So you're going to need those, that's really important. You have to be really careful. If you get any of this powder on your hands, then you need to go and wash them immediately because it can be really irritating and it can sting your hands. So that's a word of warning for you. Okay, let's look at the things that we're going to need for this experiment because there are a few things. So let's go over those really quickly. Okay, so here is the equipment. If you go on the slideshow, you can see that I've put a link to some instructions, which is where I've got this idea from online. They use slightly different material, slightly different equipment, because you would normally be doing this in a school, but because we're not in a school, I've found a few things that we can use that you might have lying around the house. So let's go over that. The first thing you're going to need is something to fossilize. So I've chosen this cute little monkey. It's a little monkey. Monkey see, monkey do, monkey hear, and he's got it covering his little mouth. You want to choose something quite small. That might actually be a bit too big really, but something small, something that is hard, because remember the soft bits of the animals get dissolved first and they leave the hard bits. So this is going to be my skeleton or my shell that's going to become fossilized. Then you're going to need the plaster of Paris, which if you haven't got any, I will leave some in school, but you have to email the Year 3 email address first. Do not just turn up at school because I will not leave it there for you. I will leave it behind. I will leave it somewhere for you once you have contacted me. You will need some modelling clay, which again, I will leave at school if you contact me. If you don't contact me and you turn up at school, then there will not be any there for you. Also, do not go into the school. I will arrange to leave it outside somewhere for you. Then you need some paper or card. You will need some scissors, your gloves and glasses, of course, really important, some sellotape, some sand. I've not got any sand because I don't live near the beach, but I've got some soil, which is probably going to be good enough. You need some water. You need something to mix your plaster of Paris in. I'm using a little cup. You can use a yogurt pot or you can use a Tupperware container. And then a few little tools here that we're going to be excavating our fossil with. So I've got some tweezers, I've got a little toothbrush, an old toothbrush, ask your parents please, your adults. I've got a little toothpick here which is going to serve 2 purposes. That's going to help us when we're making our fossil, you'll find out how, and we can use it to gently scratch away the rock, the pretend rock that we're making, to excavate it. And I've got a little hair clip here, which is obviously not from my hair because I don't have any. And I think that's all we need. So let's have a look at how we make our fossil. Right, so the first thing I need to do is to make a mould, which is, remember, that's the hole that's left after the skeleton or the shell is disintegrated under the water, under all the heat and pressure. So to do that, I'm going to make a cylindrical shape out of some card, or if you haven't got card, you can use paper and you can fold it a couple of times. So I've taken my card and I've just cut a strip from that, and then what I'm going to do is fold it around like this. Now, something important to remember is, so if I'm fossilizing this little creature, this has to be big enough to fit my little creature in there. So my monkey has to fit in there nicely, so about that big. It doesn't have to be exact, but as long as it's big enough. You don't want it too big, because then you'll have to use lots and lots and lots of modelling clay, and maybe you don't have that. If you've got lots of modelling clay, then you can make it big. Okay, there's my cylinder. I've just stuck that with a little bit of tape. If you don't have any tape, you could use a bit of blue tack, or even some paper clips, hair clips, just to hold it in there. The next thing you need is some modelling clay. You can use plasticine if you want, or Play-Doh. It just has to be something that is malleable, which means that you can stick something in it and it holds the shape. It's soft. Okay, so I'm going to loosely, roughly turn that into a bit of a cylinder, a bit of a kind of biscuit shape, roughly like that. And then I'm going to put that into my, you can't really see what I'm doing because it's down here, but I'm going to put that into my paper cylinder, and I'm going to push that down so that it fills that cylinder. I'll show you in a second what I've just done. So I'm going to put that on the table like that and push it down so that it gets nice and flat. Okay, that looks good to me. Let's have a look. Yep, so now I was pushing down there on the table, and because it was on the table that's flat, I've now got this nice shape here. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so I've got that. That is going to be the sediment, the rock underneath where the animal has fallen and died. The soft stuff's eroded away, and the shell's still there, and the pressure of the water has pushed down on all that sediment, all that sand and mud, and it's compressed it into kind of a rock here. It's not a full rock. So into that is where my poor little monkey has died, has fallen to the bottom of the sea, and he's going to get imprinted into here. But first, a little tip. I've got some washing up liquid here. With my finger, I'm just going to dab a bit on there, and I'm going to rub that onto the surface of the little monkey, just onto the side that's going to be in the mud. And the reason I'm doing that is to stop it from sticking to the clay when I pull it out, because I want to, if you imagine it, if it starts sticking, then the mould is not going to be an exact impression. It's not going to keep all the exact patterns and shapes of my monkey. So that's just going to mean that it goes in and out nice and easily. Okay, so poor little monkey's died. He's fallen down to the bottom of the sea, let's say, and he's become embedded in the sediment at the bottom of the sea. So I'm going to just push poor little monkey into, I'm going to do it again on the surface, but I'm going to push him in to the clay, and that's him being pushed down by the pressure. And of course in the real world there would be more silt, more sediment going on top, more and more and more, and the pressure of the water's pushing down in there. Okay. So this is how poor little monkey would probably be for a good old 1,000 years maybe. It's going to take a long time for that skeleton to start to erode, and all that time monkey is there. And then remember, if you remember from the slideshow in the video, what then happens is the mud goes on top, it starts to become rock. So this becomes rock with the pressure, and eventually even the skeleton, the water goes into the gap where that is, and it starts to erode the skeleton as well. So even the skeleton starts to disintegrate. But because the sediment underneath has already turned to rock, when the sediment when the minerals erode his skeleton, the shape of his skeleton or the shell remains in there. There's a little old monkey. Yep. So what we're seeing now is monkey after probably 500,000 years. He's encapsulated in this rock. You have to imagine there's more rock on top. His skeleton has dissolved, and there's now just a hole which is shaped just like monkey's little skeleton there. So what happens next? If you remember, more water goes into this hole gradually because it seeps through the rock, because the rock actually has lots of tiny little holes in it. So water seeps into the rock and into this little shape, and then the minerals inside the water start to solidify, so they turn into rock themselves, and then more and more pressure from above goes down. And this whole time, the mud is constantly sinking because of the pressure of all the mud. So now what we need to do is we need to show what happens there, where the water with the minerals goes into the skeleton's shape. And we're going to do that with our plaster of Paris. Okay, so here I've got my plaster of Paris, sorry. Remember that this is really important to put your gloves on and wear your glasses here, because it can be irritating for your skin. If at any point you get any of this on your skin, then you need to go and wash it really quickly with water and soap. It's not going to kill you, but it is irritating, I think. I think it can slightly burn you, so it's better to be safe. Well, sorry. These gloves, I'm not sure if I mentioned, they're really cheap. You can get them from a chemist, you can get them from, nowadays because of COVID, you can get gloves everywhere. I got these actually, I think, from when you're in a petrol station and you're changing the oil, you can just get them for free, so have a look out for those. And of course I've got my glasses on, so I'm ready now, I'm safe. So the first thing you need to do, you're going to be mixing your plaster of Paris into a container, which can be a yogurt pot or a Tupperware container or anything you've got, with some water. So I'm going to take a teaspoon of my plaster of Paris, and I'm going to put 3 teaspoons. Okay, so the teaspoon is the small teaspoon. There's one. Here is my second one, and my third one. Okay. Now the next thing you need to do is start to add your water, and you do this. Don't just chuck it all in. Do it really slowly. I've got this barbecue skewer that I'm going to use to stir that, but you can use anything you've got that you can stir it. So I'm going to slowly start to add my water. You can't really see. It's annoying that you can't see my table. Okay. A little bit of water, a few drops, and I'm going to start to stir that around in there. Okay, so first of all, it goes into like a thick paste, and that's not what we want, so I put a bit more. The next, yeah, also, okay, so what we want is for it to be liquid enough for us to be able to pour it in there. Let's have a look. We want no lumps in there, so I'm going to keep stirring it until all of the lumps are gone. And it's looking pretty good right now. Okay, nice. Yep, so when you're stirring it, be careful, you don't want it to splash everywhere. Remember, it's not very good for your skin, this stuff, so try and keep it in there. I think that looks good. I can't see any lumps. Oh, there's a couple of lumps at the bottom. Okay. So again, when I take this out, I'm going to put this on a bit of paper because I don't want it to go onto the table or anywhere else. So I'm going to just lay that gently down there. So what I've got now is this liquidy thing. Looks like kind of thick milk, but it's not milk. Don't drink it. Remember, don't drink it. Okay, so now I've got my plaster of Paris. Remember, this is in real life, this would be the water that's seeping in through the tiny holes in the rock, and it's seeping into the hole that's left by poor little dead monkey and the way his skeleton used to be. So I'm going to very carefully pour this, I can't really show you, into monkey's impression. Okay. And what's going to happen is it's liquid, so it's going to go into all the gaps that have been left by a little old monkey. And then it's going to dry and it's going to turn into a rock. Okay. There we go. Perfect amount. Okay. So what I'm going to take you, I'm going to show you actually from here. So I'm going to take my gloves off because I've done the dangerous bit now. I'm going to leave my glasses on because I quite like them, and I'm going to show you what I've done. Okay, so as you can see now, here is it's still liquid, this plaster of Paris. If I dip that in there, you can see that it's still liquid. So I've just poured that in. It doesn't matter if it goes a bit like over the edge, that's fine. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to, just to make it a bit more realistic, I'm going to put some soil over this. This would have been, ideally you'd use sand or something for this, or you could use some gravel. And this is just going to give it the look of a rock that we found somewhere. You don't have to do this, but okay, I'm just going to sprinkle that in there. Oh, lovely. Yeah, remember, you'll be doing this with an adult, so they'll be able to help you not to make too much of a mess. Okay, just sort of push that around a bit. Oops, can't see what I'm doing there. Okay, so now I have got my finished fossil. But at the moment, this fossil is deep, deep underground, isn't it? So, monkey's fallen to sea, he's died. Bits of his flesh have died really good, been eaten by fish, and they've rotted off pretty quick. And we've got left with his little skeleton. The sediment's gone over and over and over, and it's pushed down on him. His skeleton's eroded. It's gone now. And then the water with the minerals has gone in there. But this whole thing is underwater. It's underground, and the earth is constantly going down and coming up again, and going down and coming up again. And so it might be like millions of years before this even pops up, but it might not. But eventually, it will. Hopefully, if you're lucky, it will get pushed up maybe near a beach or into some cliffs, and someone finds it on the beach, and they can start to excavate it, which is what we're going to do later. But I'm going to have to leave this for a day, I think, for the plaster of Paris to set, to go hard. So the next step that I need to do is I'm going to take off this mold, this cardboard. You don't need that now. Do that very carefully by peeling away the sellotape or whatever you've used. In fact, it might even be a better idea to use paper clips or something, just because that's easier. Okay, so I've taken off this. I'm going to unwrap it. Here's our little rock. Okay, that's underneath the ground now. So what we need to do now is we need to leave this outside or somewhere really nice and warm and dry to go all hard. And I'm going to use a toothpick just to poke a few holes in here, because that will help it to dry out quicker. When you're doing this, you're not poking this in like too far, because imagine if you went in all the way to there, you're going to be poking up little poor old monkey's plaster of Paris, and you're going to mess up your pattern. So just a tiny bit. I'm going in just that far, like less than a centimetre. And I'm going to put these little holes all the way around it. I'm holding it in my hand so I can show you, but I think when you're doing this, you should put it on the table, so that there's no risk of you tipping it up and poor little old monkey falling out. Okay, so I'm making these holes there, and then I'm going to put it, it's quite a sunny day today, so I'm going to put it outside in the sun. but it is a bit cloudy, so if it starts raining, I'm going to keep an eye on it and I'm going to bring it in because I don't want it to get wet. So we're going to check back on that. In fact, I'll show you where I'm going to put it. Let's go for a walk. Okay. So we're going to take little monkey deep down under the water. I'm going to take him outside and I'm going to put him somewhere. Let's have a look. I'm going to put him here, right next to my nasturtium plant in a teapot and my mint plant. And so I'm just going to leave him there. I'm going to keep an eye out for the weather because it's a bit cloudy. And then we're going to come back tomorrow and I'll show you what's happened to that, and then we can excavate, which means to dig up and see what we have found. So tomorrow we're going to be real paleontologists. Okay, so it's the next day and I've left my little fossil overnight and it's gone really hard now, so that's a good sign. I made these little holes and I left it in the sun. So we're going to see if we can excavate this now. We're going to see what we can find in here. So we're going to imagine we've just found this rock on the beach, and we're going to use our tools to scrape away all of the rock really gently and see if we can expose our fossil that's underneath that. Okay, I'm going to change the position of the camera now so you can see what I'm doing and you can see my tools. Right, so the tools that I'm going to use to try and excavate my fossil are just things that I've found lying around the house. So you might not have these things, or you might have some different things. So I've got a little toothpick here. I've got a hair clip. I think this is a knitting needle, sort of crochet needle. A little toothbrush to brush away the fine bits. A paintbrush for the same reason, so we can brush away those little bits of stone. Some scissors maybe. Fork. So you kind of want sharp, pointy things that you can kind of etch away, you can scratch away out. So, I'm going to do this all on a piece of newspaper or some other kind of paper or tea towel or something, just to keep your family's table nice and clean. You could do this outside actually if it's sunny. It's quite a nice thing to do outside, I'd say. Okay, so let's get started. So I've got my soil here. So I guess the first thing I'm going to do is I really want to kind of crack this open a little bit, really. So I'm going to start from this side, I think. I'm going to use this little old thing here. I'm going to see if I can just break in. Oh, it's not as hard as I thought, actually. It's still a little bit soft. So this stone, if this was in the real world, this would have been mud and sediment and sand, and it would have gone to the bottom of the sea. And the weight and the pressure of the water would have pushed down onto this, and it would have gradually, over thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, it would have turned it into this rock. As you can see, it's not actually completely hard yet. Maybe it wasn't warm enough outside, or maybe I didn't leave it long enough. So maybe when you do this, maybe you're going to want to leave this for maybe 2 days. I don't know. Let's have a look. Okay, so I'm going to change my tool. I'm going to use this little toothpick now. See if that. Oh no, that doesn't go in at all. So this is just about experimenting, seeing which tools are the easiest, the most suitable for the job. I actually think the first one I was using was the best there. So for this beginning bit, because I'm taking off big bits at first, so I don't have to be that gentle, but as I get down and I start to uncover my fossil, I'm going to want to be a bit more gentle with that. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, we must be getting close. So if you were doing this with a real rock, you might use a chisel and a hammer or something. Okay, so you have to be really careful because you don't want to break the fossil. You want to be really careful. So even when you're dealing with rocks, you don't want to take too much stuff off. So I'm just actually using my fingers here because it hasn't dried, so it's not ideal actually to show you, but it's Monday tomorrow, and that means that I have to put the video on YouTube, so I'm just going to have to show you this. Alright, so when you do this, you're going to leave it maybe 2 days, and for you it's going to be a lot harder, I think, but also in lots of ways a lot easier because the rock will crumble and chip off. It won't peel off like it is with this one. Okay, so we're really getting down here now. I'm going to start using some of these different tools. I think I might have started to find. Am I at the fossil? Okay. Let's see. Again, I'm using my fingers. You would probably be using your tools though, because it wouldn't be as soft. Okay. I'm going to just get rid of a lot of that first excess stuff, and then we can start to really excavate the details out of that one. Okay, we're getting down there now. Let's have a look. I'm going to start using this. I'm going to chip that away there. Scrape, 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 scrape. Oh, I've broken my toothpick. No. Alright. Okay. Scrape that. Maybe I'm going to use this little brush here to just brush some of this away. And oh yeah, so we're being really careful now not to break my cast. So I'm peeling away and I'm brushing away the dust, and you can see actually that it's starting. There's a fossil in there, isn't there? Can you see that there is definitely something, some kind of ancient creature is in there. Some kind of, what could it be? I've discovered something. I'm going to brush this away here. Oh, look at this. What could this possibly be? Interesting. I'm going to try and get that way. Maybe I use some more, some of my tools. Maybe use this to just scrape that away there. Okay. A bit more of this toothbrush here. Make sure, of course, you're going to ask all of your family members. Don't just go into the bathroom and start using their toothbrushes to do this. And don't use the toothbrushes again afterwards. Oh, right, look at this. We've really... Look at that. So now there's just a few little details that I'm trying to get off here. So I'm going to brush those out. Okay. So I have uncovered my first ever fossil. So what you're left with is all of the rock and debris that you have scratched off, and underneath is my fossil. So as you can see, this is, like it said in the slideshow, like a 3D picture of my animal. But it's not my animal. So my animal died and got buried, and then the water dissolved all of the bones, and then new water, new minerals went into the gap, into the hole, into the mold, and an image, a picture of the animal's skeleton was cast into that mold, and what we get left with is a perfect image of that animal, and that is what happens when fossilization occurs. Okay, so now it's your turn, guys. So you need to go gather all of the equipment. There are some instructions from another website on the slideshow which are a little bit like mine but slightly different, but you can use those to help you. You can watch this video again. Remember, you need to think carefully about choosing what you're going to fossilize, because it has to be something with some hard bits in it. I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't be able to fossilize something like a book or a t-shirt, because what's going to happen to the material as it erodes? It's not going to leave anything hard behind to turn into a fossil. Oh, I'm just going to get these last bits out. Okay, so your task now is to make your own fossil and then excavate your fossil. And then I think there are 3 tasks for you to do in your books. You need to do a diagram about how fossilization occurs, and you need to write about what happens when an animal or a plant is fossilized. And there's also a cool little game that you can play at the end of the slideshow, a board game, all about how difficult it is for an animal to become a fossil. There are so many obstacles in the way. Most animals will never become a fossil, and even if they do, the chances of you finding them are very, very slim. But this little monkey here was very lucky. He got fossilized and he was found. I'm going to keep that because I like it. Okay, good luck as usual. Oh, if you need plaster of Paris and modelling clay, you need to email the year 3 email address, I will leave you some somewhere. Do not come to school unless I have given you instructions. Okay, I look forward to seeing how you're doing with these. Good luck.